The abandoned space station hung motionless against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars, its angular silhouette a stark contrast to the swirling purple nebula behind it. Dr. Sarah Chen guided her research vessel closer, her heart racing as the station's true scale became apparent. The structure dwarfed her ship, its crystalline surfaces reflecting the distant starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Initial scans complete, Doctor, the ship's AI reported. The station appears to be dormant but intact. No signs of recent activity detected within the past century. Surat adjusted her gravity harness, double-checking the seals on her exploration suit. This far from established space lanes, she couldn't afford any mistakes. The station had appeared on no star charts, its presence a complete mystery until her deep space survey mission had detected its unique energy signature. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss. Sarah pushed off gently, letting her momentum carry her through the station's cavernous entry chamber. Her helmet lights illuminated pristine corridors that seemed to absorb and redirect the light in impossible ways. The architecture doesn't match any known species, she murmured into her recorder. The angles and proportions suggest builders with a completely different sense of spatial awareness than humans or any of our current allies. As she ventured deeper into the station, her sensors detected a faint power signature emanating from what appeared to be the central chamber. The door was sealed, but a careful inspection revealed an interface panel that responded to her presence. Geometric patterns shifted across its surface, rearranging themselves into recognizable forms. It's adapting to me, she realized, watching as the alien symbols transformed into something approximating human language. The translation wasn't perfect, but the meaning was clear enough. Arc of access point. The central chamber took her breath away. A massive crystalline structure dominated the space, its faceted surfaces containing what looked like streams of living light. As she approached, the streams coalesced into coherent images and text. Beginning archive interface recording, she spoke into her suit's computer. The structure appears to be some kind of database or historical record. It's showing me profiles, detailed analyses of different species. The first profile displayed a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting between states of matter. The translation described them as the quantum minds, masters of fundamental forces who could reshape reality through pure thought. Species designation, 5th ranked among galactic powers, she read aloud. Capabilities include manipulation of quantum states, consciousness transfer, and matter-energy conversion at will. Profile after profile revealed civilizations that seemed more like gods than mere species, the stellar shapers who built their homes inside stars. The architects, whose megastructures could encompass entire solar systems. Each entry was more incredible than the last, describing beings of almost limitless power. But something wasn't adding up. Computer, cross-reference these species against known galactic civilizations, she commanded. The results were puzzling. Some of these supposedly mighty beings had been encountered by human explorers, but they were nothing like the Archive described. They were advanced, certainly, but not the cosmic powers detailed in these records. The final entry caught her attention. It was different from the others, marked with what her translator interpreted as a warning symbol. The text was fragmented, but what she could decipher sent a chill down her spine. Beware the untapped potential. In seeking perfection, we created specialization. In pursuing power, we became rigid. The greatest threat lies not in strength, but in adaptability. There exists a species. The text cut off there, the rest of the entry corrupted by time or deliberate tampering. Sarah's hands trembled as she made copies of everything. Whether this archive was prophecy, history, or something else entirely, she knew her discovery would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. As she prepared to leave, a final message scrolled across the crystal surface. Archive accessed. Signal sent. Protocol initiated. The station hummed to life around her, awakening from its long slumber. Sarah's discovery was about to change everything. The galaxy's true power structure was far more complex than anyone had imagined, and humanity's role in it was about to become clear. The emergency meeting of the Earth Science Council was interrupted by a phenomenon that turned the sky into flowing ribbons of light. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the conference room window as iridescent waves rippled across Saturn's rings, visible even from the research station on Titan. Multiple dimensional breaches detected, the station's AI announced. Energy signatures match no known configurations. The assembled scientists fell silent as a ship materialized in orbit. Unlike the utilitarian designs of human vessels or the organic curves of known alien craft, this visitor seemed to be constructed from pure light, its form shifting and flowing like liquid crystal. "They're transmitting," the communications officer reported, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "It's coming through on all frequencies simultaneously." The message that filled the room was both sound and light, a symphony of information that somehow translated itself directly into understanding. "We are the Luminoth," it began, "seekers of knowledge, travelers of light. We come seeking the Invaders." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The beings emerging from the dimensional portal matched exactly the description from the ancient archive's 10th entry. But according to those records, the Luminoth were supposed to be far more powerful than this elegant but modest display suggested. The Council's initial response was cautious but welcoming. Within hours, a delegation of Luminoth representatives had been cleared to dock with the station. Sarah found herself selected as part of the reception team, her recent discovery making her uniquely qualified. The beings that emerged from their vessel defied conventional physics. Their bodies were semi-transparent, internal lights pulsing in complex patterns that seemed to correspond to their speech. Each movement left trailing afterimages, as if they existed in multiple moments simultaneously. "We have watched your species," the lead Luminoth explained, its form crystallizing into a more humanoid shape out of courtesy. "You create, you adapt, you overcome obstacles in ways we had thought impossible." The Council representatives exchanged glances. Humanity was barely a century into its interstellar age. Compared to the Luminoth, who had mastered light-speed travel eons ago, Earth's achievements seemed modest. "There is a darkness approaching," the Luminoth continued, "one that has already consumed 3 sectors. The stellar shapers could not contain it. The quantum minds could not comprehend it. We need different thinking." Sarah stepped forward, earning sharp looks from her superiors. "You're not as powerful as the Archive described you, are you?" she asked. "None of the listed species are." The Luminoth's light patterns shifted to what Sarah somehow knew was appreciation. "You found the warning Archive," it stated. "Then you understand. Those descriptions were not of what we are, but of what we sacrificed everything to become. In pursuing ultimate power in our chosen domains, we became unable to change, to grow, to imagine new possibilities." Murmurs spread through the human delegation as the implications became clear. Each of the supposedly mighty species had become trapped by their own specialization, masters of their chosen field but unable to adapt beyond it. "Your ships are primitive by our standards," another Luminoth added, its form shimmering with what might have been amusement. "But in the past century, you have advanced more rapidly and in more directions than we have in millennium. Where we see limits, you see possibilities. Where we have perfected one path, you explore thousands." The station's sensors suddenly blared a warning. A massive gravitational anomaly had appeared at the edge of the solar system, its readings unlike anything ever recorded. "It comes," the lead Luminoth announced, its light dimming noticeably. "The threat that adapts to any single form of defense, that learns to counter any pure form of power. We did not seek you out because you are mighty humans. We sought you because you are everything we are not, unpredictable, innovative, and endless in your potential." As if to emphasize the point, the gravitational readings shifted, somehow adapting to the defensive measures automatically deployed by the station. Sarah watched the Luminoth's reaction and understood. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in mastery, but in their refusal to be mastered by any single path. The Stellar Shaper's vessel emerged from the heart of the sun, its crystalline surface radiating with contained stellar energy. The sight would have been more impressive if the ship wasn't trailing plasma from multiple hull breaches. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the observation deck as the damaged vessel limped into Earth's orbit, its usual brilliant glow dimmed to a faint flicker. Third evacuation this week, the station commander noted, his expression grim. The quantum mines lost an entire sector yesterday. Whatever this threat is, it's learning faster than anyone anticipated. The stellar shapers were supposed to be nearly invincible, creatures who had evolved to live inside stars and manipulate solar energy at will. The ancient archive had ranked them third among the galaxy's mighty civilizations. Now they were refugees. Their powers proved insufficient against an enemy that adapted to every defense. Emergency reports flooded the quantum communication networks. The entity, or entities, no one was quite sure anymore, had developed countermeasures for every strategy the specialized species attempted. It absorbed the stellar shaper's energy attacks, reflected the quantum mine's consciousness probes, and bypassed the dimensional barriers created by the Lumineth. "Show me the latest sensor data," Sarah requested, bringing up a holographic display of the affected regions. The pattern of destruction seemed random at first, but something about it nagged at her scientific instincts. "Computer, overlay the locations of each species' primary defense structures." The resulting visualization confirmed her suspicion. The entity wasn't randomly consuming systems, it was systematically targeting the most specialized defensive installations first, as if it understood that these represented the greatest concentration of each civilization's power. A quantum mind representative materialized in the command center, its ethereal form flickering with distress. "Our latest analysis has failed," it announced, its thoughts translating directly into comprehensible speech. "The entity's adaptation rate exceeds our computational models. We cannot predict its next move." "Perhaps that's the problem," Sarah suggested, earning curious looks from both human and alien observers. "We're all trying to understand it through our own specialized lenses. The stellar shapers analyze its energy patterns. The quantum minds study its computational processes, but none of you are looking at the whole picture." The holographic display updated with new data as another system fell. The defending forces had deployed their most powerful weapons, exact replicas of the ones that had previously succeeded against other threats. But the entity had already adapted, turning their specialized strengths into vulnerabilities. Every species listed in the archive evolved to perfect one aspect of existence. Sarah continued, thinking aloud. "But this thing, it's like it's specifically designed to counter perfectionism. The more specialized and powerful the defense, the more quickly it adapts." A junior science officer spoke up from her monitoring station. "Doctor, we're detecting unusual activity in the Carina Nebula. The entity appears to be dividing." The observation screens filled with impossible readings. The cosmic threat was somehow splitting itself into multiple forms, each one apparently optimized to counter a different species' abilities. The quantum mind's representative flickered in alarm, its usually ordered thought patterns becoming chaotic. "It learns, it adapts, it evolves." The being transmitted. "Our greatest strengths have become our greatest vulnerabilities. We have spent millennia becoming perfect at what we do, but in doing so, we have become predictable." Sarah watched as the emergency channels lit up with desperate requests for aid. The mighty civilizations of the galaxy, each one a master of their chosen domain, were falling one by one to an enemy that turned specialization against itself. "Then maybe," she said slowly, "what we need isn't perfection. Maybe we need something messier, less predictable." She turned to the station commander. "Get me a direct line to Earth's Defense Council. I have an idea, but they're going to think it's crazy." In the holographic display, the entity continued its advance, consuming the carefully ordered defenses of the galaxy's most powerful species. But for the first time, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. Sometimes, the best answer to perfect order was a little chaos. The Emergency Earth Defense Council chamber hummed with tension as Dr. Sarah Chen presented her findings. Holograms flickered around her, showing the devastating progress of the cosmic entity across the galaxy. Representatives from a dozen human colonies watched alongside delegates from the remaining powerful species. The ancient archive wasn't a ranking of power, Sarah explained, manipulating the display to show translated excerpts. It was a warning about the path of extreme specialization. Each listed species pursued ultimate power in their chosen field, but in doing so, they sacrificed something crucial. A stellar shaper representative pulsed with agitation, its solar corona flickering. We achieved mastery over the fundamental forces of stars. How is this a weakness? Because mastery implies limits, Sarah replied, bringing up new data streams. Look at human history. We never mastered any single field to the degree your species did. Instead, we remained generalists, developing thousands of different approaches to solving problems. The display shifted to show human technological progression. While other species had focused on perfecting singular paths of development, humanity had pursued countless parallel tracks. Their achievements in each field were modest compared to the specialized species, but their approaches were endlessly diverse. The entity adapts perfectly to counter any single type of defense, Sarah continued, but it struggles against multiple different approaches used simultaneously. It's like trying to develop immunity to every possible disease at once. The more varied the threats, the harder it becomes to counter them all. A quantum mind representative materialized, its thought patterns showing interest. Our analysis suggests this theory has merit. In sectors where multiple species attempted uncoordinated defenses, the entity's adaptation rate slowed by 3.7%. Sarah nodded, expanding the holographic model. Now imagine not just different species attacking separately, but a single species capable of combining multiple approaches in unpredictable ways. That's humanity's hidden strength. We're not the best at anything, but we're decent at everything. The chamber erupted in overlapping discussions as the implications became clear. The Luminoth delegates' light patterns shifted rapidly as it processed the idea. This explains why the archive listed us as we once were, not as we are now. In pursuing ultimate power, we became predictable. Humans remained chaotic. Military strategists were already running simulations based on Sarah's theory. The results showed promising patterns. While human technology was inferior to each specialized species in their respective fields, the ability to switch between different approaches mid-battle created defensive patterns the entities struggled to counter. There's more, Sarah said, highlighting a section of the ancient text. The warning at the end of the archive wasn't about a threat to the powerful species, it was about humanity. We're the untapped potential they feared, a species that refused to be limited by any single path of development. The Chamber's AI updated its tactical displays as new data arrived. The entity had consumed another system, but its adaptation rate was showing the first signs of strain. In regions where human ships fought alongside their alien allies, using hybrid technologies and unpredictable tactics, the advance had slowed measurably. We don't need to be the best, Sarah concluded. We just need to be unexpected. Every human colony develops slightly different solutions to similar problems. Our technologies combine influences from dozens of species. We're not bound by any single doctrine or approach. The council members began to understand. Humanity's perceived weakness, their lack of specialization, was actually their greatest strength. While the mighty species of the galaxy had evolved to become perfect but rigid, humans had remained adaptable, innovative, and impossible to predict. The entity counts on being able to adapt to whatever it faces, Sarah explained. But how can it adapt to a species that never stops changing its approach? We're not just fighting with technology, we're fighting with creativity, with thousands of different solutions evolving simultaneously. For the first time since the crisis began, hope began to spread through the chamber. The most powerful species in the galaxy had tried to become perfect. Humanity had chosen to remain perfectly imperfect, and that might make all the difference. Earth's Singapore Space Center had transformed into an unprecedented gathering of species. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from her laboratory as stellar shapers worked alongside human engineers, their solar-enhanced bodies carefully controlled to avoid overwhelming the facility's thermal regulators. Nearby, quantum minds interfaced with Earth's most advanced computers, their consciousness expanding the processing power exponentially. The integration of Lumineth light drive technology with human propulsion systems is proceeding ahead of schedule, her assistant reported, displaying the latest test results. The hybrid ships are showing capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. Sarah nodded, studying the data streams. The combination of human ingenuity with alien specializations was producing remarkable results. Where the powerful species had once worked in isolation, perfecting their individual strengths, they now learned to complement each other in ways none had imagined possible. The entity has adapted to counter the architect's dimension-folding technology, a technician announced, bringing up new tactical displays. But the human modification to randomize the fold patterns is still effective. It can't predict what we're going to do because we keep changing the underlying principles. In the main engineering bay, human scientists work to understand and replicate aspects of each species' abilities. They couldn't match the raw power of the specialists, but their versions were more flexible, capable of being combined in ways the original species had never attempted. A stellar shaper commander, its form blazing with controlled stellar energy, approached Sarah's station. "Your species continues to surprise us," it communicated through the translator field. "You take our perfect techniques and deliberately make them imperfect, yet somehow this makes them more effective against the threat." "Imperfect, but adaptable," Sarah corrected, showing the latest simulation results. "Look at this hybrid defense system. It combines Lumineth light bending with quantum mind processing and human unpredictability. The entity can adapt to each component, but the way they interact is constantly changing." The facility's quantum communications array lit up with new data from the front lines. The entity had encountered the first wave of hybrid ships, and for the first time since the crisis began, it had been forced to retreat from a system it was attacking. Analysis confirms the theory. A quantum mind representative reported its thought patterns displaying excitement. The entity's adaptation algorithms cannot process the chaotic variables introduced by human modifications. It develops countermeasures for individual components but cannot predict how they will be recombined. The success sparked a new wave of cooperation. The architects, whose megastructures had once been marvels of mathematical precision, began incorporating seemingly random elements suggested by human engineers. The Lumineth allowed their light-based technology to be modified in ways they had once considered inefficient, but now recognized as tactically advantageous. "We're not just combining technologies," Sarah explained to the assembled team leaders. "We're combining approaches to problem-solving. Each species brings their specialized knowledge, but it's humanity's ability to see new connections that makes the combinations work." In orbit, the first fleet of hybrid warships prepared for deployment. Their designs reflected this new philosophy of controlled chaos. Stellar shaper energy weapons mounted on hulls that incorporated Lumineth light-facing, guided by artificial intelligence that combined quantum mind processing with human intuition. "The entity expects perfection," Sarah continued, watching the ships move into formation. "It anticipates that every defense will follow logical, optimal patterns. But humanity has never been interested in finding the one perfect solution. We want all the solutions, even the messy ones, even the ones that shouldn't work but somehow do." A cheer went up from the engineering bay as another successful test completed. The combined power of humanity's greatest warriors and the galaxy's mightiest beings was creating something entirely new. A force that was neither perfect nor predictable, and therefore impossible to counter completely. Sarah smiled as she watched the preparations continue. The mighty species had spent millennia pursuing power through specialization. Now they were learning that true strength might lie in embracing imperfection and celebrating the unexpected. The testing chamber beneath the Singapore Space Center pulsed with multicolored energy as Dr. Sarah Chen initiated another trial. Through reinforced observation windows, she watched as human scientists worked with synchronized precision alongside their alien counterparts. Hybrid Technology Test Sequence 47 beginning, the facility AI announced. Combining stellar shaper energy manipulation with human probability mechanics and lumina phase shifting. The chamber's central platform held what looked like a simple sphere, but its surface rippled with possibilities. Inside, human-designed quantum processors worked in harmony with crystalline matrices grown by the architects, creating something entirely new. Previous attempts to replicate specialist abilities always failed because we tried to copy them exactly. Sarah explained to the gathered observers. We were approaching the problem from the wrong direction. Instead of trying to match their perfection, we needed to embrace our own way of doing things. The sphere activated, generating a field that combined multiple technological approaches in ways that should have been impossible. Where the specialists had sought perfect solutions, humanity had created purposefully imperfect ones that could adapt and change as needed. Energy patterns are stable, a technician reported. The field is successfully combining 3 different technological bases without any of the predicted interference patterns. A quantum mind representative materialized next to Sarah, its thought patterns showing intense interest. You have achieved in weeks what we thought would take centuries. Not by mastering any single approach, but by finding unexpected ways to make different approaches work together. The breakthrough had come when Sarah's team stopped trying to replicate the specialist's abilities perfectly. Instead, they developed technologies that could approximate multiple different approaches simultaneously, switching between them or combining them as needed. Look at the field modulation, Sarah pointed out. It's not as powerful as a pure stellar shaper energy construct, not as precise as lumina phase shifting, and not as controlled as quantum mind manipulation. But it can be all of these things in rapid succession, or even simultaneously at a reduced level. Screens around the chamber displayed incoming data from the front lines. The entity had begun to show signs of confusion when faced with these hybrid technologies. Its perfect adaptation to pure forms of energy and matter manipulation proved less effective against weapons and defenses that constantly shifted between different operational principles. Initial reports confirm engagement success rate up 300%, the facility AI announced. Enemy adaptation algorithms showing first signs of systemic failure when confronted with multiple simultaneous technological approaches. The sphere in the chamber continued its demonstration, its surface now rippling with possibilities as it cycled through different combinations of alien technologies filtered through human innovation. Each iteration was unique, following patterns that emerged from controlled chaos rather than rigid design. We're not just combining their technologies, Sarah explained to a group of human military observers. We're creating new ways of thinking about how these forces can interact. The specialists evolved to perfect one approach because it was efficient. Humanity evolved to try everything because we never knew what might work. In orbit, the first full squadron of hybrid ships prepared for deployment. Their designs reflected this new philosophy. Each vessel incorporated technologies from multiple species, but used them in ways their original creators had never imagined. The ships could shift between different tactical approaches mid-battle, making them impossible to counter with any single adaptation. Your species has shown us something remarkable, the quantum mind transmitted. We sought to understand the universe by mastering its individual aspects. You seek to understand it by exploring how everything connects to everything else. Sarah watched as the test sphere demonstrated another impossible combination of technologies. The entity had evolved to counter perfection, to adapt to any single approach, no matter how powerful. But humanity had never sought perfection. They had always been explorers, experimenters, willing to try new things simply to see what would happen. Sometimes, she said, watching the sphere's shifting patterns, the most powerful approach is not to master a single path, but to master the art of walking many paths at once. The combined fleet materialized at the edge of the Carina Nebula, their hybrid drives creating a cascade of quantum distortions that rippled through spacetime. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the command center of the flagship Prometheus as hundreds of vessels took formation, each one a unique fusion of human and alien technology. Entity detected in Sector 7, the tactical officer reported. Multiple signatures emerging from the nebula's core. They're adapting to our presence already. The enemy emerged from the stellar gases like living shadows, their forms shifting and changing as they analyzed the assembled fleet. But this time, they faced something different. Ships that defied conventional classification, weapons that operated on multiple principles simultaneously. Launch first wave, Admiral Santos ordered, her voice steady. Randomized attack pattern Delta. The human-designed battle strategy unfolded like a deadly dance. Ships equipped with stellar shaper energy weapons suddenly shifted to Lumina phase technology mid-attack. Others combined multiple approaches simultaneously, their hybrid systems creating effects that had never been seen before in the history of space warfare. The entity is attempting to adapt. A quantum mind representative reported its thoughts interfacing directly with the fleet's tactical network. But its algorithms are showing signs of strain. It cannot predict which capabilities each ship will manifest next. Sarah monitored the data streams as the battle unfolded. The entity had always countered its opponents by analyzing their patterns and developing perfect defenses. But humanity's fleet refused to follow any single pattern. Each ship captain had been given the freedom to combine technologies in whatever way they thought might work. Multiple enemy signatures attempting to synchronize, the tactical officer warned. They're trying to develop a unified defense. That's their weakness, Sarah realized. They're still trying to find the optimal solution. Execute Contingency Protocol 7. The fleet split into smaller groups, each adopting completely different tactical approaches. Some vessels channeled pure stellar shaper energy through human-designed probability matrices. Others used modified architect technology to create localized space-time anomalies, their effects amplified by quantum mind processing cores. The entity's adaptation algorithms began to show signs of cascading failure. Designed to counter perfect but predictable attacks, they could not cope with the controlled chaos of human innovation. Each time they developed a defense against one approach, the fleet would switch to something completely different. We're not just fighting with technology, Sarah explained to the bridge crew. We're fighting with creativity. Every captain out there is finding new ways to combine these technologies, creating possibilities that even we didn't predict during testing. The battle reached its peak as the entity launched its strongest counterattack yet. But where previous civilizations would have responded with their most powerful single ability, the human fleet fragmented into dozens of smaller units, each one adopting a different combination of technologies and tactics. They can adapt to anything, Admiral Santos said, watching the tactical display. But they can't adapt to everything at once. The entity's perfect defenses began to crumble under the assault of imperfect but unpredictable attacks. Ships phased between dimensions while firing weapons that combined multiple forms of energy. Space itself warped and twisted as human innovation found new ways to combine the fundamental forces of the universe. Energy readings from the entity are destabilizing, the tactical officer reported. Their adaptation matrix is overloading from trying to process too many variables simultaneously. Sarah watched as the mighty being that had terrified the galaxy's most powerful species began to break apart under the assault of humanity's controlled chaos. The entity had evolved to counter perfection, but humanity had never sought perfection. They had sought possibilities. All ships, execute final attack pattern, Admiral Santos commanded. Everyone pick your own combination and hit them with everything we've got. The resulting attack was beautiful in its complexity, hundreds of ships using dozens of different technological combinations in ways that had never been tried before. The entity, for the first time in its existence, found itself unable to adapt to the sheer variety of approaches it faced. Victory, when it came, wasn't achieved through superior power or perfect execution. It was achieved through humanity's greatest strength, their ability to try everything, to combine the impossible, and to find strength in the unexpected. The Singapore Space Center's Grand Hall buzzed with activity as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for the first Interstellar Innovation Summit. 6 months after the entity's defeat, Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, looking out over an audience that represented the greatest gathering of diverse species in recorded history. The ancient archive was never meant to be a celebration of power, she began, gesturing to the crystalline structure now displayed prominently in the hall. It was a warning about the dangers of pursuing perfection at the cost of adaptability. Today, we begin a new chapter. The assembled delegates included not just the formerly ranked species, but dozens of younger civilizations previously dismissed as too primitive to contribute to galactic society. Each brought their own unique perspectives and approaches to problem solving. We've established the first cross-species innovation centers across 20 systems, Sarah continued, bringing up a holographic display. These facilities aren't focused on perfecting any single technology or approach. Instead, they're dedicated to finding new ways to combine different perspectives. In orbit, the hybrid ships that had won the war now served as templates for a new kind of space exploration. Their designs continuously evolved as different species contributed their insights, creating vessels that could adapt to any challenge they encountered. A stellar shaper representative rose to speak, its corona dimmed to a comfortable glow. Our civilization spent millennia pursuing mastery over stellar energy. Now, our youngest scientists work alongside humans, discovering new applications we never imagined. Their imperfect approaches have opened entirely new fields of study. The quantum minds had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Rather than seeking to perfect their consciousness manipulation, they now explored countless different ways of perceiving and processing reality, each new perspective enriching their understanding. The entity taught us all a valuable lesson, Sarah explained. In our quest to become the best at what we do, many of us forgot to explore what else we could do. Humanity never achieved mastery of any single field because we were too busy trying everything. The display shifted to show the latest breakthrough, a transportation system that combined lumina phase shifting, human probability mechanics, and architect spatial manipulation. It wasn't as efficient as pure Lumineth technology, not as precise as architect designs, but it could adapt to handle any kind of cargo or condition. We're not here to replace specialization with generalization, Sarah emphasized. Every species brings unique strengths and perspectives, but now we understand that true progress comes from combining these strengths in new and unexpected ways. The ancient archive, once a source of pride for the ranked species, had been transformed into a museum piece. Its warnings about the dangers of over-specialization now served as a reminder to future generations about the importance of maintaining adaptability. A young human scientist demonstrated the latest hybrid technology, a medical scanner that incorporated elements from 5 different species approaches to healing. Each contributing civilization had initially thought their method superior, but the combined device could diagnose and treat conditions that no single approach could handle. The galaxy once measured power by how perfectly a species could perform a specific function, Sarah concluded. Now we understand that real power lies in the ability to change, to adapt, to see new possibilities. Every species here today brings something unique to our collective future. The summit marked more than just a gathering of civilizations. It represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy's inhabitants viewed progress and power. The mighty species have learned the value of imperfection, while younger civilizations discovered that their fresh perspectives could contribute to solving age-old problems. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah walked through the hall, watching representatives from formerly distant species engaged in animated discussions about new possibilities. The entity had threatened to destroy them all, but in doing so, it had taught them something invaluable. That strength lies not in achieving perfection, but in maintaining the ability to evolve, to change, and to see the universe through new eyes. The age of ranked powers had ended. The age of infinite possibilities had begun.